Hi everyone and welcome to this very special broadcast at Mirror Now. Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye. It's an unusual title for the life story of a soldier, but then a soldier's life is anything but usual. General Dhillon, General Tiny Dhillon will tell you that. General Dhillon, thank you very much. I don't know why I'm calling you General Tiny Dhillon because, and all I'll say is welcome to our very tiny studios.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was a little worried. I said, General Dhillon is 6+.
Yeah.
How will we accommodate him in our tiny studio? Why are you called tiny, just by the way? You're one of the tallest people I've met.
Ma'am, I written this in this book also, Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye. In my unit, you are a Fauji daughter, you understand what is unit. When I joined the unit, 4th Battalion, the Rajputana Rifles, in that unit there is a small tradition. They will give a nickname to the young officer, which is opposite to his looks or his personality. So since I was 6 feet 3 inches tall, I was named Tiny.
Okay.
There's an officer senior to me. He retired as a general officer. He was also 6'3". He was called Shorty.
Okay.
Officer junior to me, again 6 feet 3 inches. He was called Mini.
You know, I'm wondering if there were a couple of more officers who were above 6 feet tall, what would you have called them?
Yeah, we were fell short on names.
Or it would be Tiny 1, Mini 2,
Yeah.
Shorty 3. General, I was just telling our viewers that I don't need to introduce you. All our viewers know you. Why did you decide to call your book Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye?
Ma'am, this book is being released on 14th of February 2023, which is the 4th anniversary of Pulwama ID blast. And before we go on the subject, I would today again like to reiterate and pay my respects to the families and best wishes to the families of brave hearts. As also, I would like to pay my respects to the 40 brave hearts of CRPF of Pulwama ID blast. This phrase, Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye, you would recall after Pulwama ID blast, within 100 hours, we were able to eliminate the perpetrators, the module of Jaish-e-Mohammed, which carried out that blast. And the leader of that module, which did the ID blast, was a Pakistani terrorist called Kamran. His real name was Kamran. He was from Jaish-e-Mohammed, and his code name was Ghazi. Ghazi is a very preferred code word by the Pakistani terrorists. And we had eliminated many of these Ghazis even before that Pulwama blast. So during that press conference, a question was asked by a journalist. Because for the last 4 or 5 days, there was a lot of buzz in the media that Ghazi was the commander who did Pulwama. So a question was asked, sir, is Ghazi dead? I didn't want to give much credence to the terrorists. So my statement was, Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye, Parwani, we are there. So this book, in spite of being in English, even my publishers were surprised, why this title?
Yeah.
I said, this is the title which defines my life. Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye, number of tenures I had in Kashmir and number of Ghazis which came across and they went.
Ghazi is a fairly common nickname for terrorists.
It's a very common nickname. And as an Indian, I will say, Muhammad Ghazni bhi aaya tha. Parwani hai na, India mein, we will stand tall, the nation will stand tall, we will face all the Ghazis, not to worry. So this is the spirit of this book.
So you've spoken about Pulwama. I think that's where we can start.
Yes, ma'am.
You're just about posted to Kashmir, and Pulwama happens.
Yes.
Pulwama, where a convoy of the CRPF is attacked by a suicide bomber in a car that is filled with explosives. 40 of our Jawans die. This is a declaration of war.
Yes,
This is a declaration of war, but you have just taken over.
yes, ma'am.
How was the response to that plan? Because the response did come.
Yes. Now, I had taken over on 10th of February 2019, Chinar Corps, and the changeover visuals are also playing in the background. And Pulwama happened on 14th of February, within 4 days of my becoming the Chinar Corps commander. And this type of ID blast or this type of casualties had not happened in Kashmir's history of terrorism over the last 30 years. I had multiple tenures in Kashmir earlier, but this magnitude of an incident I had not witnessed. Notwithstanding, within first few minutes, we gathered ourselves, we realized the magnitude, evacuated the casualties, warned the helicopter fleet, the medical officers, the doctors and all. And thereafterwards, ma'am, within next 1 hour, we got down to business of hitting them and eliminating them. We got our act together, all the security forces, we met. In fact, my ADC, Captain Sandeep Singh, he asked me, he was very anxious, young officer, sir, ab kya hoga? And again, please don't mind the language. I said, we'll get the bastards. This was within 2 hours of Pulwama. And within 48 hours, we got the intelligence of their presence in village Pinglana. And we also knew they were going to move within next 3-4 hours. We hit. Firstly, we planned between the Jammu Kashmir police, 55 Rashtriya Rifles, CRPF, intelligences. We planned, we reached the spot, we encircled the area, and we struck within those 2-3 hours. And initial few minutes, we lost Major Vibhuti Dondial and we lost few of her Johns.
Yeah.
And 55 Rashtriya Rifles, ma'am, did not let the momentum of operations slow down. Because when the casualties happen, operations do tend to get slowed down. It's but natural because you're managing the casualties, you're doing the evacuation, somebody's going with them, somebody's calling up COs, company commanders, attraction or his attention gets more diverted towards this. But hats off to 55 Rashtriya Rifles and Jammu Kashmir Police and CRPF.
I remember the day Major Vibhuti Dhondial had
Yes,
died. A lot of people had assumed that he's my brother.
Yes,
because my brother is in the army as well.
Yes.
And I remember getting, I don't know how many calls that day.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
say, that's your brother, that's such a brave man. And you know, I told many of them that I didn't know him, but it feels like he was my brother.
Yes, ma'am.
He was I still remember that. I want to ask you, what's the feeling when you are there heading a corps and something like this happens? What is what's the underlying sentiment? I remember 26/11.
Yes,
I remember feeling extremely angry. Pulwama, my first reaction is anger. But can a soldier's first reaction be anger? A soldier who knows that there is a response to be planned and given?
Ma'am, before I answer your question, a lot of people ask me about this photograph on the cover page.
Yes.
And the eyes.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of talk on social media, on my handle, on my timeline, as to the eyes, the ferociousness in the eye, the firmness in the eyes. Ma'am, these eyes are, when I had not slept for last 2 nights because the operation was going on, these eyes were a reflection of, I had just paid tributes, laid a wreath for Major Vibhuti Dondial and other men. These eyes, I had just moved them from the war memorial into the press conference. These eyes were depiction of the soldiers' feeling of last 48 hours or 72 hours after Pulwama. And this is what, like you said, anger. Soldiers don't get angry, ma'am. Soldiers get braver and firmer. They get more resolute. They plan their operations with bigger resolve. And they want to achieve their mission. The mission was to eliminate this module at the earliest. Because you would have heard, there's a very famous Hindi movie, in that there's a dialogue called, "How is the Josh?"
Yeah.
So Pakistani trolls had started calling or trolling, "How is the Jaish?"
I remember.
Because this oppression, this section was carried over Jaish-e-Mohammed. So we were responsible, हमारे कंधों पे थी वो जिम्मेवारी, to get the morale of the nation back.
They were taunting us.
They were
essentially.
taunting us, they were hinting us, they were celebrating. So it was upon us, that responsibility was upon us, the soldiers, to hit back. So we did not sleep for next 4 days till we got hold of this module and eliminated them. So this is the feeling of a soldier. Soldiers don't get angry. Soldiers get resolute.
You're talking about sleepless nights.
Yes.
Were there sleepless nights when Article 370 was abrogated, again under your watch as the co-commander?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, this.
The prediction was very dire. The prediction was "Khoon ki nadiyan bahengi."
Yes, ma'am.
Prediction was that Kashmir will be up in flames.
Yes, ma'am.
It didn't happen.
Article 370, I devoted 3 chapters of Article 370 in this book, Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye. What happened prior to 5th of August 2019, that is, what our preparation went into it, what our discussions went into it, what happened on the day, and how we managed the situation post the abrogation of Article 370 after 5th of August. All this is there. Some very interesting incidents and anecdotes are in this book which are not in the public domain till date. Keeping the confidentiality classification of things in mind, I have given great insight into how oppression or the abrogation of Article 370 was planned. There were chief ministers in the past who had said, if something happens to 35A, there will be तिरंगे को कंधा देने वाला कोई नहीं होगा. खून की नदियां बह जाएंगी, लाशें बेच जाएंगी. Kashmir will be up in blood, mutiny हो जाएगी. So nothing like that happened because the team worked for it. The team security forces worked for it. I've given all the details, how we went about it, how we coordinated it in the book, how we planned it. And most important is that planning anything is not difficult. But planning it without letting your adversary know about it. Bhanak nahi padni chahiye. Not a single thing should move out. The complete planning of this in Kashmir, per se, I have written in the book the details.
So I hope any one of you who's interested in Kashmir, I'd seriously suggest you pick up the book, go buy the book and read it. And General Dhillon is someone who has spent half his professional life in Kashmir. 1980, which is why we are talking so much about Kashmir. 1988 is when you first get posted. 1990 is the exodus of Hindus. It's in the book. It's in the book. It's in the book. What do you remember of it?
Ma'am, I was a young captain in North Kashmir, posted to Kashmir in September 1988. I have written in the book, a lot of people have this narrative building. The terrorism started on 19th of January 1990, and so was not the chief minister. So he is absolved of all the responsibilities. I have given figures, data, percentages in the book. Terrorism was there much before 18th January 2019 also, and even in 1988. The feeling of animosity, the angst, the anger against Indians was very much prevalent in Kashmir. The killings were happening, the terrorists were getting enrolled, they were going to Pakistan for training, they were returning back with weapons. All these things were...
So this has started happening in 1987, 88?
88, 89, all this. This is given in the book, how it all started. Now coming back to your question, on 19th of January 1990, the infamous date, the black date in the history of Kashmir and India, when the Kashmiri Pandits' forced exodus took place. I was a young captain in North Kashmir. I have given specific incidents. I was able to save a few Kashmiri Pandit families myself. Our unit did their bit. All that has been given in this. A lot of people also ask, why was the army not called in?
Exactly. It was my second question. Why was the army not called in?
Or why the army did not intervene? I have explained that also with all the rules and regulations, and I can give you a glimpse of it. Ma'am, law and order, maintenance of law and order in any state where Disturbed Area Act is not there or Armed Forces Special Powers Act is not there. Maintenance of law and order in that state is of the state administration. And the local police, the state police is supposed to ensure that. However, there are provisions and regulations of army where army can be called in by the civil administration for anything. Starting with man-made disasters like terrorism or any big blast, the natural disasters like floods and earthquakes, and or anything else for maintenance of essential services. Some employees go on strike, say of electricity department or whatever. So army can be called in some health emergency like COVID. Army can be called in for anything by the state administration, but state administration has to give it in writing the number of columns which are required, the duration, when it will start, when it will finish, the location, specific when it can, where it can be employed. And after the work is done, they're supposed to de-requisition. The army goes back to barracks. Army cannot, on its own, come out and start doing things.
Was it a mistake in hindsight of the government not to bring the army in? I understand the rules and regulations you're talking about. I understand that AFSPA was not in place in Jammu and Kashmir then. In hindsight, was it a mistake?
Now, it's the responsibility of the state to protect its citizens. I leave it at that. They should do everything within their rights, under their command, in their control, to protect the lives and the property of the citizens of their state.
And Jammu and Kashmir failed in doing that. And probably had the army been called in, things wouldn't have turned out the way they turned out.
There were additional forces available in location. I'll not go into the politics of it or the other thing. There were force available, which is very capable force, that is army. If they were utilized, some lives would have been saved.
If they were utilized, some lives would have been saved. General, you write extensively about Kashmir, and I have a couple more questions. So you have seen Kashmir in 1988 when terrorism is just beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you are the corps commander in Srinagar. Over the years, how has terrorism evolved in the Kashmir Valley? And for 30 years, why were we not able to curb it or do much about it?
I've written again in the book, there was an ecosystem which was working. there was an environment which was working, and they were beneficiaries of that ecosystem in the system. I'll repeat the statement, and I hope you get the hint. They were beneficiaries of that ecosystem within the system. So those people probably were not, you can say, sincere enough to do much about it. They are indices of terrorism as to when it's going up, when the graph is coming down. After abrogation of Article 370, all the indices are down. The number of terrorists operating, the number of terrorist-initiated incidents, number of terrorists committed atrocities, number of civilians killed, number of terrorists killed, number of security forces personnel killed, all these indices are down. That means terrorism can be controlled, it has been controlled. A consolidation phase is going on. Other indices like how is the tourism, how is the normal income of the public, how are the education systems working, how the hospitals working, how is the civil administration, that Patwari going to the last village or not, that postman going to the last village or not, the DC conducting the surveillance of the public and remaining in contact with the public. All these indices are up. If it can be done now, it could have been done any time in the past.
It wasn't done because there wasn't political will. Because there were too many people benefiting from that industry, you're saying.
I said that, ma'am. There was the ecosystem and the people within the system who were benefiting.
And we kept losing soldier after soldier, and we've lost many soldiers in Kashmir.
Ma'am, we lost soldiers, we lost Kashmiris, we lost innocent Indians. We lost a lot of progress, we lost economically, we lost a lot of narrative to false propaganda in the international committee. So,
on that note, what's your assessment of the Pakistan Army? Professional assessment of the Pakistani Army.
Ma'am, any defense forces or the army, the professionalism of this is dependent on how well they can do the task assigned to them. Second is how well they fall within the constitutional framework of that nation. Like in India, the civilian control is supreme. Defense forces work on the instructions or orders or directions of the civilian control. Thereafterwards, how to conduct the military operations is the responsibility of the military commanders. In Pakistan Army, the civilian organization is under the military control. Professionally, I have interacted with a lot of Pakistani officers abroad when we are on the courses and all, but the type of corruption, the type of, you can say, privileges of the senior officers, the reason to become a senior officer in Pakistan Army and then get all the dividends, get all the goodies, may it be plots or corner plots or pieces of lands or pizza chains abroad, you name a thing, they're doing it. And now coming to the actual meat of it, they have not won a single war they have fought ever since 1947. 93,000 prisoners surrendered in 1971, the biggest military surrender of a standing army with weapons and equipment, the biggest in the history after the Second World War. If this type of stigma they're carrying, I leave it to judgment of the viewers.
I think the biggest stigma is actually leaving your own soldiers in the battlefield.
I wrote about it.
Yeah.
Now we are trained.
It happened in Kargil,
in Kargil.
1999.
It happened when I was a corps commander also. In Kargil, they left their dead behind when the Indian Army offered them. They refused to take their dead soldiers. Indian Army gave them a decent burial. General Joshi retired as another army commander. He was the officer commanding officer of 13th Jack Rifle. The Maulvi Sahib came, he did all the prayers and they were laid to rest. When I was a corps commander in Kupwara sector, there were 5 Pakistani terrorists who were trying to infiltrate. We killed them at the line of control. The dead bodies are lying on the line of control. We told the Pakistanis through DGMOs, you pick up your soldiers, you pick up your citizens. They refused to recognize them as Pakistani citizens. Those bodies were eaten by the animals. They did not take their dead back. These are not the ethos of professional army.
A professional army. I think that's what defines the Indian Army.
Yes, ma'am.
It's ethos and I think also it's humanity.
Yes, ma'am.
Humanity, when you know that this is an enemy soldier, his country has abandoned him, he's dead. After death, kya dushmani rakhni? So at least give him that decency.
It's in our culture, I always say, 5,000 साल पुरानी सभ्यता के वंशज हैं हम. In olden days, the wars used to stop at night. People were allowed to pick up their dead and take them to their respective camps. Those who are not identified, the enemy which had killed them, would always give them a good burial. And that soldier, he fought for his country.
True, he's a soldier.
He's a soldier. You have to respect his fighting. Indian Army is respecting a Pakistani dead soldier. Pakistan is not respecting their own dead soldier. फर्क है.
बहुत फर्क है. बहुत फर्क है और वो फर्क दिखता है as they say. General Dhillon, coming to you've dwelled a lot on the life.
Yes.
On your life as an army man, as a family man. I don't know. You've been retired a year now.
Yes, ma'am.
When you look back at your career in the army, what is it that stands out for you? What is it that always remains with you?
Ma'am, professionally, what remains with me is the respect which the countrymen and countrywomen give a soldier. When I go to an airport or a railway station or a mall, the way I'm mobbed, the way I'm approached by young boys and girls. In fact, now also outside the studio, I was waiting and a young girl recognized me and she came running. And
in fact, there are 3 young girls who met me in the makeup room and said, "Ma'am, don't let him leave without meeting us."
Okay. So this is the biggest earning of a soldier, when your nation loves you. On the personal front, you talked about 1 year of retirement. Every soldier, when I talk about myself, I written about in the book, I give personal examples, it becomes more authentic. But when I talk about myself, I talk about every soldier on the front, every soldier's family back home. I have missed family life to the extent, both my children, when they were born, I was not there. When they went to school, I was not there. When they went to college, I was not there. When they joined professional colleges, I was not there. My wife saw my death news twice on the television. So these are the things which happened. But they did not deter me from next time be there. If there is a job to do, I did the job and I left it for my wife to decide and handle situations back home. And every soldier's wife, every young soldier's mother, they handle the home front so well. You are an army officer's daughter. I can tell you, ma'am, Indian army officers' wives or Indian army Jawan's wives are the strongest women on this planet. The amount of tragedies or the tragedy that can happen to them any moment, the way they can handle it, the way they can handle adversity, the way they can handle life under adverse conditions, the way they can build themselves up, the way they can build their children up. I have yet to see another lady who does it and does it with pride.
Let's leave our interview. Let's leave our viewers with anecdotes on food. I don't know how many people know, but they say an army does march on its stomach. We know that.
There's a chapter in the book.
There's a chapter in the book on that, and every Paltan has its own speciality.
Everyone has their own speciality.
Any food anecdotes that you yourself are a very good cook.
Yes,
your social media handles are filled with you cooking and sharing recipes. But any anecdotes that you remember? The tastiest, I would say, in your entire career, the tastiest meal that you've had.
Ma'am, I written a full chapter in this book on Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye on food. As you yourself said, army marches on its stomach. That is the heading of the chapter. The tastiest food in the army, as against normal perception that army officers' mess food is the tastiest, the Jawan's langar food is the tastiest. And the tastiest food is when you are out on a patrol, there is no professional or a specialist cook with you. You cook all your own meals. मैम वो कच्चा पक्का जो होता है ना उसके जैसा स्वाद नहीं है. And I love. And anecdote, you said humorous anecdote. I am from Rajputana Rifles. Our troops are Jats and Rajputs from Rajasthan, Haryana, and around Delhi. They have a sweet tooth. They love their sweet dish and sweets. Churma is one of the best dishes, sweet dish or desserts I ever had. So they're very fond of sugar. So when we go out on a patrol, we carry our sugar, chai patti, the tea leaves, and rush and everything. If I don't mix the tea leaves with the sugar, our sugar would be gone in for 6 hours. So in Rajputana Rifles, we always mix the sugar and tea leaves before we set out for a longish operation, so that the sugar is not eaten up. So these are small little. Every regiment, every unit, every troops have special kind of lifestyles, and officers adapt to them. There's another thing I written in the book: Jawan's religion is the officer's religion.
Correct.
Like I have visited Mandir more number of times. I have done Havans more number of times than probably I have gone to a Gurdwara Sahib. So, ma'am, it is a second nature. I can recite the Aarti, I can do the Havan, and No one even questions why this man is not from this religion, why is he performing the puja or he is doing the havan. No, mind में बात ही नहीं आती है वो.
Maybe the nation needs to learn this from
I
the
was
army.
wanting to convey that point.
Maybe the nation needs to learn this from the army.
Absolutely.
General, it was such a pleasure speaking to you. Many, many congratulations on the book. It's already a bestseller, I know.
Yes.
And I can only wish you all the very best. And I can hope that our viewers read the book and get an insight on how a soldier lives and works. Thank you very much, General, for coming to our studios.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaskar and Jai Hind.
Thank you.